and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us. Today, we have attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She's an amazing family attorney. She has her own law firm in the Worcester area. And today we are going to be talking about family case trials. Lots of fun. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So I think I know what, if speaking from personal experience, family case trial, I mean, that is such a nerve-wracking situation because there's a lot of buildup to it, often a lot of buildup before you break up with somebody, but then a lot of buildup to the trial with the research and finding a lot of things out and trying to figure out what your life is going to be like in the next phase. And so this is where all the decisions are going to happen. So can you give us an overview of what is decided at trial?
Well, let me back up a little further on this one. So before you get to the trial, I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and I'm going to revamp and talk about everything that happened in your life with this ex. And nothing's off limits. So you're going to have to learn that you're going to have to relive all this all over again. So that's kind of the prep to get to the trial. So once we get to the trial, we're going to be looking at what type of issues the judge is going to want to hear about, what they want to know specifically is happening in your life, what has been happening in your life regarding your children, regarding your spouse. So all of those things are relevant. The court is going to look at those 17 plus factors that we always talk about to determine how the judge is going to make a decision on all of those issues. So we need to go over all of those issues. I need to ask you what your age is. I need to ask you how your health is. Those are pretty basic questions, but then I'm going to ask you the conduct of the parties, and that's an all-encompassing, and that's where most of the tears are shed.
Yeah, you say that in such a chipper way. So let's talk about what is decided at the trial. I mean, definitely that lead up is horrific for most people. That's why you need a level-headed attorney who can just walk you through it as in a matter-of-fact way, has empathy, but also has the strategies and can say, hey, we need to focus on this at this moment. Time for tears is later.
Absolutely. The judge is going to look at what is before them. So if it's a divorce, the judge is going to look at what specifically was pled. Are you looking for custody? Are you looking for child support? Are you looking for alimony? What are you looking for in division of assets? Is there a house involved? And did you list that house in your original complaint? So those are all factors that the court's going to consider. But in any pleading, in any case, pretty much anywhere, is what is pled. So we're always going to look at that wherefore paragraph. It's the last paragraph in any complaint. And it's going to say, wherefore, I want this. And it's not going to be those verbiage, but that's basically what it says. I want this. So how do I get this? And that's really what we want to focus on is what have we asked for? Is it something that we can get from the judge? And more importantly, will the judge listen to what I'm actually requesting?
So this is a tough question. What if you don't currently get to see your child for whatever the reason is? Can you still seek custody?
A lot of people have. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful. The reality is the court's not going to go, hey, child's been with mom and you haven't seen the child in 2 years, but you think all of a sudden this child should come live with you. Now, again, depending on the age of the child, maybe the child's older and has really voiced a concern that they want to live with dad, but maybe it's, hey, dad's a deadbeat because he's ignored me. So that can kind of go either way. And again, we got to look at why there hasn't been that connection. Has there been FaceTiming? Has there been phone calls? Has there been any interaction? If the answer to that is no, then sure, you can plead it. It doesn't mean that the judge is going to award it. And it's highly unlikely that the judge would award it. So my suggestion to you would be, let's come up with a plan that says, hey, you're going to start out small, and then let's do gradual increases so that, in maybe a year or 2 years, we get to come back and then we can ask for custody.
I've actually seen people go through that, and it's a long process, but that's really what's best for the child. Because if they're not used to that person, they're certainly it's going to be like throwing them in a bath of cold water to try to make them have this relationship and this new life with a parent that they don't see very often. So can you tell me, what type of things are pled during these trials?
Generally, we're going to look at the big ticket items. So we're going to ask for, the house. We're going to ask for alimony. We're going to ask for custody. We're going to ask for, somebody to pay for health insurance. We're going to ask for a parenting schedule. We're going to ask for child support. Those are all things that we're going to ask for. And then there's other cases where they want to ask for the moon. Well, you can ask for it, but again, it doesn't mean the court's going to decide it. So maybe we ask for legal custody, or maybe we ask for, if we get joint custody, we want to make sure that we get the final decision making. That seems to be the latest trend of what people are seeking now, and something that the court can consider. But are they going to make determinations about every last thing that you plead? No. If it's not something that rises to the level or something that the judge can make a decision on, then the judge will not make a decision on that. So we can ask for the moon, but the reality is you still have to meet your standard of proof, and it still has to be something that's within the purview of the judge being allowed to do it.
I mean, that is how it goes. Those are the things that you work on. Now, because a lot of these divorces tend to be contentious, it is about a breakup and changing your whole life and money and seeing your kids. Sometimes there are negative comments made, believe it or not. So what do you do if you have a problem with that?
I think, the question is, how do the negative comments help you or hurt you? Are you the one saying it? Is there something that you can get the judge to agree that this is an ongoing issue and that revolves around parental alienation? Is it something that is just a one-time fluky thing? Are they doing it in front of the children? So there's a lot of factors that the court's going to consider. And then the question is, again, do you have a rebuttal if you're the one saying those things? Is there something else we can look at? So the court's going to look at all the nastiness, assuming it can come into play. Sometimes it can't because it's hearsay. But assuming it gets in front of the judge and the judge hears it or reads it, then the question is, what are the defenses and how much weight that judge is going to give those comments and how it's going to impact the case. Because again, the more we can show, the more likely it is parental alienation, which may help or hurt your case depending on which side you're on.
So here's an interesting question that I have for you. There's been so many changes coming about with the COVID vaccines, mask mandates, everything is coming down. People aren't forced to do anything anymore. What will the judge do when it comes to the COVID vaccine?
Oh, this is a hot topic, let me tell you. It's one of those things that I've seen pretty much at least every other week in court lately. It's that contentious that, one parent says, I believe in the vaccine, the other party says, hell no. Where do you go from there? Obviously, the judge is going to have to make a determination as to who's right. So obviously, if this matter does go to trial and it's on that one issue, then the judge can very well say, I'm going to order that mom or dad give or not give this child the vaccine. And the judge is going to listen to both parties' testimony and their beliefs, as well as what is going on. Is there a reason? Are we saying we don't want it because there's a lot of concerns about allergies or things of that nature, or just because it's new and we don't do any tests, we don't want to do any vaccines that haven't been tested for 5 years? Or what's the magic criteria that either of these parties are for or against? And the judge is going to have to listen to that. Maybe they listen to an expert, maybe they listen to a pediatrician that's giving them insight, but often it's the parties. It's both parties totally pitted against each other, and the judge has to make a determination as to what the judge believes is in the best interest of this child. And that's a very hard decision as a judge.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's a scary decision to have to make for somebody, because of what could happen. I mean, people are still getting very ill from COVID, depending on which strand you get, and depending on your body and how you react to it. It really varies greatly from person to person and from child to child. So, I suppose a good question would be, will the judge give one parent or another the final legal decision?
In certain circumstances, they have. Generally, if you have a joint custody situation, it's joint, which means you and your ex have to make that decision together. And when you can't make that decision, then the remedy is to come into court. And unless you have a parenting coordinator or mediator or something like that, that's your remedy, is come into court and let the judge decide. So yes, the judge is there to make those decisions. So if the judge finds that you guys can't agree on anything regarding joint legal, chances are the judge is going to award one of you sole legal custody. But let's assume, for argument's sake, that you guys are on the same page regarding education and religion. But medical, again, can't see eye to eye. One says no vaccines whatsoever, including chicken pox and all of those things that you need for school. And the other parent says absolutely. So in those types of circumstances, you're going to have to pick. The judge is going to have to make a determination. So the judge is going to look at it and go, these people cannot agree on relating medical issues. We're going to have to let one parent decide, because otherwise the court's going to intervene every single time. So it does happen, but it's very limited. I wouldn't expect it in most cases. So, when you listen to this and you say, well, you said, well, yes, I said it, with the caveat that it happens probably 1 in 1,000 cases. So we really have to show that this is an experience and it continues on every issue regarding medical issues involving your child.
And that is just, I don't know how you do it. You have to get involved in such hairy situations. And people are so passionate about some of these topics that we're talking about. Now, here's another topic that people are often very passionate about. They've just gone through this breakup, and now all of a sudden their ex is, having a new person hang around with your child. And it may not even be that. It might be that they didn't really like the ex's mother. The mother is now taking care of the child all the time. Or maybe they don't like that they're friends who, might be drinking a lot in front of the child, or, whatever the situation is. What do you do? Can the judge say that certain third parties are not allowed to be around your child?
The judge cannot order that, but the judge can say, Mom, you will not allow, Arthur Smith to be in your presence with the children. So the judge would say somebody specific, and that person couldn't be around. And the judge might actually say the reason why, but probably not. So the judge isn't going to say that Arthur Smith can't be around. They're going to say Mom will not allow child to be around. And that's kind of how it will be worded. But yes, there are certain circumstances. Usually it's things where this person has a sordid history. God forbid they have any criminal history on children, stuff of that nature, but it usually involves some kind of criminal activity that they've got themselves into, and we do not think that this person is going to be anything to the benefit of this child.
Yeah, that is really tricky. And I know that oftentimes people are very passionate, emotional, upset about situations that are going on, and they may be talking to a friend. The friend might be bad mouthing the other parent. Can a judge stop that from happening?
The judge cannot stop a third party from bad mouthing, but the judge can again say, mom, you will not allow this person to badmouth. You will remove the child when this person is bad mouthing. And then obviously, if it continues after I've told you that, then ultimately maybe mom loses custody because mom can't follow a court order. So again, we're not going to harass the third party, but we're going to put blame on the person that we said, make sure it doesn't happen. So a lot of times we will have that situation. Now, the problem is it becomes a he said, she said. Well, the child who's 5 years old told me that grandma was saying something and mom was sitting right there. And oh my God, look at all that hearsay. So it's going to be hard to hear testimony on that. But assuming we can get testimony in, and so maybe it is that, this child is CC'd or it's on a group chat or something. But again, how do we know that that conversation actually took place? Really, really hard to prove. But if we can prove it, then again, that's going to be their parental alienation or resulting in something that's not in the best interest of the child. And now we change custody.
Wow. I mean, it's so hard. Why can't we all just get along? Now, I've heard you say in the past that it is great if you can have the same types of rules at each house. And, bedtimes, when you do your homework, what kind of food you're eating. Are you making the kid try broccoli every week? Whatever it is that you're trying to do for the child. Now, if that's not happening, does the judge make a plan and have an order for you to follow a certain parenting situation so that they kind of match, or how does that work?
The judge is not going to micromanage. You're kind of on your own on that one. So if the parties agree to certain things, then yes, we can write it in. But if we're going to trial, the judge is not going to do that. The judge is going to write a comment that says, at either party's house, they will make sure that the child's homework is done, that they are properly fed and clothed and bathed. And that's about the extent of what they're going to say. And that's really in limited circumstances, they're even going to say that. They're going to assume that you're going to do right by your child. So if you're one of those parents that are nitpicking and saying, my child keeps coming back in dirty clothes or sizes that are too small, and the child hasn't had a bath in a week, the judge is going to go, and what would you like me to do? Again, we're not going to go to your house to make sure that and smell your child to make sure that the child is bathed and clothed properly. We're not. There's a reason why, we have the general public out there that's looking at your child. You have the schools that are mandated reporters. We have all these other people that are mandated reporters. If something's going on, they can report it. And then they go, hey, it's really a problem. But the reality is they're probably not going to take your word as a he said, she said, and go, yep, you're right. Dad's not doing the right thing. So it's one of those things that you can ask for it, and the judge will very generically make a comment, if at all. And generally, then the judge isn't going to do that. Because as soon as I say to you, Erica, are you going to make sure the children are properly fed during your parenting time? Oh, yes, Your Honor. Absolutely. Without a problem. And that's always going to be the answer. And of course, that's the right answer for the judge. It might not happen in reality. So the judge isn't going to say, you need to do that, because again, that's part of parenting.
Well, we've gone over a lot of topics very quickly. Are there any examples or gotchas that you'd like to share with the audience today on family trials?
I think the biggest thing is, go in with the expectation of trying to settle cases. If you're one of those people and you have a laundry list, and it's the best word we can say, that list of 25 things that your ex does wrong, I don't care what it is. The reality is the other attorney is going to go, what is wrong with you, Nicole? We're not going through this. And at some point we're going to go through this because we're going to try to settle the case. And you might not get your 25 points. Maybe you only get 10 of them, but you have to pick which ones are most important to you. So if you do have that laundry list, which one's most important? Which one can you give up? Which one can we possibly get under a different scenario? So again, if it's something that really is legal in nature and you have joint legal and they violate it, then our remedy is a contempt. So do we have other remedies that are out there in some other orders? That's going to be the first thing I'm going to say. The other thing is going to say is the judge is going to listen to you. But again, you need to be reasonable. When you start talking about things that, 3 days a week, the kid comes back and he's starving. Well, how many meals does your kid normally eat? Some kids are hobbits. That's the bottom line. And if you know your kid's a hobbit and he comes back hungry, guess what? That's probably the norm. It's probably not the other parent not doing their job. It's just that your child likes to eat multiple times a day. So again, kind of know those circumstances. Ask the judge for only what you really, really want, because when you start nickel and diming every single last thing here, the judge is just going, yeah. And they're not paying attention to you at all. So guess what? You've lost their interest. They don't know why the hell you're talking on the stand. You're wasting time and money, and you're not scoring any points with the judge. So really focus on, again, what is most important? How can I convey that information to the judge? And what do I need to show to do that?
Well, as always, that is sage advice. We absolutely appreciate you coming on here every week and sharing that. And thanks so much to everyone for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.